continuing in the spiritual teachings of Ramana Maharshi. If you are someone who prefers direct communication, then this book certainly skips over the small talk. Here we are in the first chapter, discussing who am I? From a spiritual perspective, what am I? And the method of self-inquiry is the method of spirituality that Ramana Maharshi recommends. So, spiritual practitioner asks, what is the nature of the self? He responds, what exists in truth is the self alone. The world, the individual soul, and even God are appearances in it. Like silver in mother of pearl, these three appear at the same time and disappear at the same time. The self is that where there is absolutely no I thought. That is called silence. The self itself is the world. The self itself is I. The self itself is God. All is Shiva, the self. Questioner asks, is not everything the work of God? Ramana Maharshi responds, without desire, resolve, or effort, the sun rises, and in its mere presence, the sunstone emits fire, the lotus blooms, water evaporates, people perform their various functions, and then rest. Just as in the presence of the magnet, the needle moves, it is by virtue of the mere presence of God that the souls governed by the three cosmic functions, or the fivefold divine activity, perform their actions and then rest in accordance with their respective karmas. God has no resolve. No karma attaches itself to him. This is like worldly actions not affecting the sun, or like the merits and demerits of the other four elements not affecting the all-pervading ether. Questioner asks, of the devotees, who is the greatest? He who gives himself up to that self that is God is the most excellent devotee. Giving one's self up to God means remaining constantly in the self without giving room for the rise of any thoughts other than the thought of the self. Whatever burdens are thrown on God, he bears them. Since the supreme power of God makes all things move, why should we, without submitting ourselves to it, constantly worry ourselves with thoughts as to what should be done and how, and what should not be done and how not? We know that the train carries all loads, so after getting on it, why should we carry our small luggage on in our head to our discomfort, instead of putting it down in the train and feeling at ease? Questioner asks, what is non-attachment? It's a common question among spiritual circles. As thoughts arise, destroying them utterly without any residue in the very place of their origin is non-attachment. Just as the pearl diver ties a stone to his waist, sinks to the bottom of the sea, and there takes the pearls, so each one of us should be endowed with non-attachment, dive within himself, and obtain the self-pearl. No, I have not read Kafta. One more question. Is it not possible for God and the Guru to effect the release of a soul? God and Guru will only show the way to release. They will not by themselves take the soul to the state of release. In truth, God and the Guru are not different. Just as the prey which has fallen into the jaws of a tiger has no escape, so those who have come within the ambit of the Guru's gracious look will be saved by the Guru and will not get lost. Yet, each one should, by his own effort, pursue the path shown by God or Guru and gain release. One can know oneself only with one's own eye of knowledge, and not with somebody else's. Does he who is Rama, another name for God, require the help of a mirror to know that he is Rama? Actually, I think the next two questions are also quite delicious. We'll read just these two more and then continue with our regular format. Is it necessary for one who longs for release to inquire into the nature of categories, tattvas? Just as one who wants to throw away garbage has no need to analyze it and see what it is, so no one who wants to know the self has no need to count the number of categories or inquire into their characteristics. What he has to do is to reject altogether the categories that hide the self. The world should be considered like a dream. That is to say, we don't need to intellectually draw boundaries around parts of ourselves and label them in order to come to understanding of it. Questioner asks, is there no difference between waking and dream? Waking is long and a dream short. Other than this, there is no difference. Just as waking happenings seem real while awake, so do those in a dream while dreaming. In dream, the mind takes on another body. In both waking and dream states, thoughts, names, and forms occur simultaneously. And one last question. I know I said 2, but I meant 3. Is it any use reading books for those who long for release? Here we are reading a book, longing for liberation. It's a good question. All the texts say that in order to gain release, one should render the mind quiescent. Therefore, their conclusive teaching is that the mind should be rendered quiescent. Once this has been understood, there is no need for endless reading. In order to quiet the mind, one has only to inquire within oneself what oneself is. How could this search be done in books? One should know oneself with one's own eye of wisdom. The self is within the 5 sheaths, but books are outside them. Since the self has to be inquired into by discarding the 5 sheaths, it is futile to search for it in books. There will come a time when one will have to forget all that one has learned. Okay, now we are pausing for real this time. So I thank you all for listening with me in this self-inquiry in the spiritual teachings of Ramana Maharshi. So there he has said himself, put the book away. So we have.